House chamber. That's not the exit. That is
toward the House.
They're walking towards the House chamber right now, and that camera. So those they're not going anywhere. They're going directly to where the debate is going in the House chamber.
Yeah, Casey Hunt, give us your sense of what we're seeing here and what's happening inside.
So, Lester, our NBC News producer, Haley Talbot, is actually inside the House chamber right now. She's serving as a producer for many of us because, of course, we have been taking these coronavirus precautions. She has been letting us know from inside the chamber what's going on. They have been yelling to members of the House to stay seated, warning them that they may need to get underneath their seats. They have been saying that people may need to relocate to the cloakroom. Now, the cloakrooms are rooms for individual. Each party has one. It's a private gathering place for members of Congress. They're both off the House floor. But as you were just talking about with Frank, you see those protesters packed in there. The cloakrooms are actually in between the House floor and where those protesters are. So the benefit, perhaps, of the cloakroom would be that it is a closed-off area. Remember, the House chamber is a big, wide open space. There are public.
The Trump administration has not been as forthcoming as they would like with information as they embark upon this historic transition in which they are going to be taking over the COVID pandemic, the economy in crisis. And so those are really underscoring the key concerns about how this transition will be carried out as the president continues these baseless claims and continues to spin up and energize his supporters in this way. Lester.
All right, Kristen, thanks. Let me bring in Pete Williams, our justice correspondent. Pete, so these objections could take this process late into the night. As you noted, the conclusion is a foregone one that Joe Biden will take the oath of office on the 20th. Is there anything between now and the 20th that they could use to try and continue to derail things?
No, I think the simple answer to that is no. There are still some lawsuits out there pending, believe it or not, but it's just too late. It's too late to challenge the process. It was really very late after the electoral vote in December. Once the Congress certifies the vote, counts the vote, it's really game over. Now, you were talking about the future. There are a lot of questions about how this election was conducted in the midst of a pandemic that undoubtedly are going to lead to discussions in states all around the country about how possibly to change procedures. How to distribute mail-in ballots, what kind of documentation has to come with them. Can state officials make changes like that without permission from the state legislature? All of that. At the same time, I know from talking to election scholars that there's going to be a real interest in trying to get Congress to change the law. To change the law that we've looked through this whole process about how you count electoral votes. So I think there'll be real momentum for that. And one other thing I would say, Lester, is, as we try to figure out, well, it looks now like the the police
Pete, let me break away from you a second. Because things are happening very quickly there on what appears to be the east side of the Capitol. People now have moved past the police and into the building. Ellison Barber, what can you tell us?
Hey, Lester, yeah, you can see what's happening right in front of us. We saw Capitol Police trying to push people back, hold them back, and arrest them. They did seem to be arresting some, but they no longer have been able to keep them back. You can see some Capitol Police officers and protesters up there waving for more. If you look just right next to me, there is a massive amount of what appears to be blood on the ground here. At least one person over here is being injured and taken away on a stretcher right now. As more and more people make their way towards the step and push through. As I was watching this, saying it looks like people are being arrested, one woman came up to me and she said that this is what happens when they believe that there have been what they believe are fraud in the election, and told me these are people standing up for America. But you can see a lot of people packed onto steps now. They have pushed back the barricade, the physical barricade that was initially down here, the bicycle racks, then the barricade of Capitol Police officers standing on the steps, holding them back, and they have made their way all the way up the U.S. Capitol steps. We have seen people be detained, seemingly arrested, put in handcuffs, and we have seen at least one person who appears to have fairly serious injuries, enough to be taken away, and blood left here on the ground where people have pushed past this barricade. You can hear them getting louder cheering as more people make their way to this area. Some sort of loud explosion type bang noise right now as some people are starting to move. It's hard to see what is happening beyond what's right in this area, but Capitol Police have gone to the other steps to try to keep those secure, but it seems like they've lost the majority of the control of these steps down here in the middle as more and more protesters make their way towards this area. They're coming from both sides of the Capitol at this point, filling in this area here. Lester?
Yeah, this is a disturbing scene, to say the least. It appeared that police essentially retreated and closed the doors. They're preventing anyone else from entering, but we did see what appeared to be protesters entering the building. This following a day of largely peaceful protests in Washington of the president's supporters. The president addressed those supporters a couple of hours ago and continued to claim many of the bogus claims that he's made about the legitimacy of the election. But clearly, these are folks who believe him and who are now taking the extraordinary step of now setting siege to at least part of the Capitol. Kasie Hunt, you were, if I believe, right across the street from this in one of the Senate office buildings. We know some of the office buildings were evacuated. Is this all related?
It seems so, Lester. We're still trying to determine exactly what the cause was to have people actually relocate from the Cannon complex. I think evacuation may be the wrong word to explain what we now know happened in the Cannon office building. They've gathered staff inside the complex. The calculation seems to be that it is safer to remain inside the complex than to send people out into what everyone is looking at right now on the screen.
A little bit, but people are still coming to this area. Initially, right after they broke through the barricades and made their way up towards the stairs, it seemed like anybody that was kind of near the area. We've seen a lot of different small groups of protesters around the Capitol all morning. It seemed like anybody who was nearby made their way here as quickly as they could. I mean, people hurrying along the sides here. More people are still coming and making their way towards this area, though in some ways, and this has really only been in the last 15 minutes or so, it does feel a little bit calmer here than it did initially when those barricades first went down and as they inched their way up the stairs. The people who are here, they've kind of stayed put, but we are seeing a slow trickle of other people still coming in here. Chants, we've heard chants of USA, USA. For now, it seems like there might be some sort of, I don't know if controlled chaos is the right word, but it's the only one I can think of at this moment, where you have a little bit less people sprinting in. Capitol Police seem to have fairly good control of the other side steps and haven't let people up those. But this area, this group here, most of them have been here all morning. The group has grown throughout the day. We've seen after they breached the barricade, more people coming towards this area. And it seems like, Lester, they have no plans of leaving anytime soon.
All right, Ellison, keep us posted. Let me go back to Kasie Hunt. As we watch the Senate and House now continue to debate the Republican objections to the results in Arizona, the first of what we believe will be several states that will be challenged in a process that will certainly be elongated because of these Republican challenges. Kasie, are the senators and House members aware of what's going on outside the building?
So, yes, it's hard not to be, and you're seeing both chambers. Our viewers can see on the sides of the screens the dais for each, and you just saw some men in suits running in the well of the House of Representatives. Things seem to be a little bit calmer at this moment, but that's a pretty unusual thing to see. And you'll also note that Mike Pence, who is currently acting in his role as president of the Senate, or was, no longer appears to be in the Senate chamber. Now, we are working on reporting out why it was that he might have been moved. We knew that it would be possible that he might leave the chamber for reasons unrelated to the security outside. But we also are learning at this point, we're getting alerts from the U.S. Capitol Police that all buildings within the Capitol complex are essentially being locked down from the perspective of they say there's an external security threat is how they're framing it. No entry or exit is permitted, and they're urging people inside this complex to stay away from exterior windows or doors. Again, they seem to be urging people to stay inside at the complex, saying that they will not let people out, of course, because they do seem, and we can see on our screen here, that there has been some control lost of areas that typically are under control of the Capitol Police, and that clearly is something, I mean, they certainly will lock down the Capitol over less than what we're seeing unfold outside right now. I mean, we should remind people, I mean, it's obviously the center of our government, and there have been many times when I have been told I can't leave the Capitol because they're concerned about a suspicious package or some other issue. Almost always those issues are resolved without there being any sort of incident, or they find that the threat, in fact, did not materialize. Now, there have been a couple instances where things have turned out to be real. There was an incident with the Capitol Police in a shooting a few years ago. But again, we've never seen anything like this, where there has been a group of protesters, at least certainly not in my recent memory. And you'll also notice, I think one of those boxes may have just gone black. And I may ask the control room, it's possible the feed was shut off, but it could also be technical on our end. So that, again, may be another indication that things are adjusting. Okay, the feed went down, I'm told. So apologies for that. So at this point, we're not necessarily seeing anyone inside the Capitol act with extraordinary alarm. And again, we have no indication that anyone has gotten inside the building. But it clearly is a pretty extraordinary moment here at the U.S. Capitol, Lester.
Yeah, we're told the House now gavelled to recess as we watch this crowd go larger. There have been no, at least as far as our cameras can see, no apparent acts of violence, but certainly the crowd has moved past where police wanted them to do. We saw a larger police presence now on one of the set of steps now, creating a kind of a human chain to protect anyone from trying to enter or storm the building. But this is what it is. Many of these people had come from a rally outside the White House, where President Trump greeted them and spoke to them. Kristen Welker, our White House correspondent. Kristen, one would think, one would hope, maybe is a better question, that the White House would urge some calm, that something like this does not get further out of control. Have we heard anything from the White House?
We haven't heard from the White House, Lester, but let me read you what I just got from a former White House official who sent this to me. The president needs to come out immediately, in all caps, and call on protesters to stand down and protest peacefully. He's the only person who can sway this crowd. So here you have some of his own former officials, some of his top allies, Lester, saying that ultimately it is up to President Trump to come out and stand this crowd down. Now, he could do that on Twitter. He could do that by making a statement. The question is, will he do that? Because, of course, earlier today, as you point out, he spoke to this crowd, these throngs of supporters, and essentially reiterated some of his false claims of voter fraud that have now been knocked down by Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. And it comes amid this break with Mitch McConnell, who has said that we cannot continuously relitigate elections, that the country would go into a death spiral if it went down that path. We now have this extraordinary break with Vice President Mike Pence, who has made it plain that he is going to follow the Constitution, which says that he does not have the unilateral authority to overturn the results of this election, that his role throughout these proceedings today is to effectively read the vote count once it comes in, once it is finished. And so there you have the basis for this and really what's underscoring what we are seeing unfold. At the Capitol right now. So again, we continue to reach out to see if we are going to hear from President President Trump if he will get that message out to his supporters, but undoubtedly he is going to get pressure from some within his own party to take action as we watch all of this unfold. Lester.
Yeah, many of the kinds of scenes that we have seen in foreign places that would give us a chill, and perhaps leaving a chill certainly as we watch it take place outside our own Capitol right now. And we understand that both houses of Congress have now adjourned. Casey Hunt, what can you tell us about that?
Well, Lester, I can tell you that things here are escalating pretty quickly. The Capitol Police made an announcement in the well of the House that they were locking down both chambers, the Senate chamber and the House chamber. And when we saw the feed go dark a moment ago, I mean, typically they control whether we can see the House. So when they go into recess, that's often when we lose that feed. It shouldn't be an indication of any violence or problem necessarily, but that is exactly now what you're seeing them sending us that on the technical side is because the chambers have recessed. So that's what you're seeing on your screen now instead of what's actually going on the floor of both of these chambers. But we're getting reports, Lester, and I should underscore, I'm in the Russell office building, which has been also locked down. We're not allowed to enter or exit the Russell House office building. The tunnels to the Capitol are closed. Many reporters who are inside the Capitol are posting pictures on social media that we're working on verifying, but we have multiple reports of protesters inside the Capitol. So that's something that we're working on finding with our own NBC eyes, but it's clear that there are at least a number of others who are in the complex who are seeing such things. There also has been another report from a reporter that I have worked with for a long time who works for a different news organization of people who are apparently breaking glass on doors. We want to underscore that's, again, something that we want to see with our own eyes.